Coming up on Primetime News, President Park Geun-hye pledges to continue with efforts for a peaceful reunification of the two Koreas while urging officials to push through the government's financial sector reforms. Seoul's unification ministry expects a top Chinese official's visit to North Korea for a key political anniversary later this week will help ease tension on the Korean Peninsula. And among OECD member states, the ratio of corporate income to the country's total income was the highest in South Korea, pointing to unequal wealth distribution. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello and welcome to Primetime News on this Monday, October 5th. I'm Hwang Ji-hye.
And I'm Daniel Choy. Thank you for joining us.
President Park Geun-hye zeroed in on two major issues facing the nation: reunification and financial reform.
She drove home the importance of tackling these issues during a meeting with our top aides earlier today and gave special attention to pushing cross-border diplomacy.
This comes amid the looming possibility of another North Korean rocket launch. Lee Soo-eun has our top story.
In a meeting with her senior secretaries, President Park emphasized peaceful reunification as a fundamental key to denuclearizing North Korea. Concerns of another provocation by the North have grown in recent weeks, as the regime has hinted at the possibility it could carry out a rocket launch to mark an upcoming key political anniversary. Reiterating the message she delivered to the UN General Assembly late last month, the president pointed out although reunification efforts must be led by both Koreas, support and cooperation from the international community are also vital. In line with her policy, the president vowed boosted diplomatic efforts for reunification. To further stabilize the country, President Park said financial sector reform was also needed. Citing a World Economic Forum report, she said the sector was dragging down the nation's overall competitiveness.
금융 부문의 개혁은 더 이상 지체할 수 없는 과제입니다. 우리 경제의 혈맥인 금융이 본연의 기능을 회복하도록 낡고 보신적인 제도와 관행은 과감하게 타파하고 시스템 전반에 경쟁과 혁신을 불어넣어야 합니다.
She called for measures to deregulate the industry, such as lowering barriers for internet-based banks to enter the banking sector and diversifying banking options for consumers. The president, meanwhile, steered clear of the Saenuri party's dispute on a new candidate nomination system ahead of next year's general elections, which has created a division between her loyalists and the ruling party's chairman, Kim Moo-sung. Lee Soo-eun, Arirang News.
As efforts continue on how to redraw Korea's electoral districts, rival parties have agreed to continue discussions on ways to prevent the reduction of seats in rural regions. Further discussions between the two parties will be held during the National Assembly's special committee meeting on political reform. Meanwhile, more than 20 lawmakers representing rural areas, however, continue to protest at the National Assembly over fears their constituencies could be swallowed up. The new scheme envisions the number of urban electoral districts will increase while rural constituencies will decrease in accordance with the shrinking rural populations. The two rival parties are trying to reach a compromise over district readjustments ahead of next year's parliamentary elections. Pyongyang has made a rare move of compassion. A South Korean detainee was released from the north this afternoon, but experts believe the act was aimed at gaining points from the international community for its human rights situation. Song Ji-sun reports.
After a near 6 months detention in North Korea, South Korean student Ju Won-moon was repatriated at the border village of Panmunjom on Monday. Ju, a New York University student with permanent U.S. residency, was detained after crossing to North Korea from China in April. While the 21-year-old was fully aware of his illegal act, he said he thought it would lead to improved inter-Korean relations. but wasn't sure what kind of event could follow as a result. Seoul's intel agency and prosecutors will investigate whether Ju violated South Korea's national security laws, as he made positive comments regarding the North Korean regime in an interview with CNN a month after his detention in Pyongyang. The North State-run Korea Central News Agency said Ju was released on humanitarian grounds. Experts say Pyongyang's release of the student could have been made in acknowledgement of the international community, as a sign that the communist state is also aware of the human rights. While welcoming the move, Seoul also put the pressure on Pyongyang to release 3 other South Korean nationals who've been accused as spies and sentenced to hard labor in the north. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
With a high-level Chinese delegation attending North Korea's key political anniversary event this Saturday, South Korea hopes to see eased inter-Korean tensions. But will the delegation carry a message from Beijing over the North's planned rocket launch? Connie Kim has this report.
South Korea's unification ministry is hopeful the senior Chinese official Liu In-sun's visit to a key political event this week will help ease tensions on the Korean Peninsula. Without elaborating further, Unification Ministry spokesperson Hwang Ji-hye said high-level officials' exchanges between North Korea and China are meaningful. Chung's remarks come as the North's state-run Korean Central Television said Sunday that Liu will head the delegation during Saturday's ceremony to mark the 70th anniversary of the founding of North Korea's Workers' Party.
The Chinese delegation will attend activities marking the 70th anniversary and pay an official friendly visit to North Korea.
It's the first time for a member of the Standing Committee of the Political Bureau of China's Communist Party to visit North Korea. Also, Liu, as the 5th most powerful official in China, will be the most senior Chinese official to visit since Kim Jong-un came to power after his father died in 2011. Given that Liu is more senior than even the country's Vice President Lee Wian-chao, watchers believe China wants to mend flagging relations with its longtime ally. However, some experts say China is more interested in maintaining a strategic balance in its relations with the two Koreas.
Beijing is leaving the door to communication open as it cannot completely ignore North Korea. Also, China has the short-term mission of preventing North Korea from launching a provocation marking this month's anniversary.
During his trip to the United States last month, China's President Xi Jinping said Beijing opposes any actions that cause tension on the Korean Peninsula, adding weight to international calls for Pyongyang to back down from plans to launch a long-range rocket or conduct a nuclear test. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
The nominee to become South Korea's next chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff underwent his confirmation hearing at the National Assembly today. He was questioned about current and future plans on containing North Korea. We turn to Kim Hyun-bin for more.
Army General Lee Sun-jin was quizzed on Monday over different aspects of the military and on ways to deal with North Korea. When asked about plans for the possible deployment of a U.S. anti-ballistic missile system called Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, he responded saying there is no plan to adopt the THAAD system at this time. Nonetheless, he indicated the deployment could benefit the South Korea military. General Lee added that while North Korea is believed to have miniaturized its nuclear warheads to a considerable extent, there was no certainty if the weapons were deployed for combat use. Lee says Korea is currently developing its own missile defense system, the Korea Air and Missile Defense System, to counter North Korea's missile threats. The system is expected to be deployed in the early 2020s. The confirmation hearing also touched on Korea's fighter jet program and the timing of the transfer of wartime operational control from Washington to Seoul. Yi was also asked how to counter threats posed by North Korea's nuclear and ballistic missile programs, its cyber warfare activities, and the regime's submarine power. In a statement before the hearing, he said that as North Korea could launch a provocation sometime this month or next, South Korea has upped its preparedness. He is expected to replace Choi Yoon-hee as JCS chairman. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Using demonstration classes and specially written textbooks, students in all grades across South Korea are learning about the plight and history of Korean women forced into sexual slavery by the Japanese military. According to our Lee Ji-won, these texts and classes are a Korean government countermeasure against Japan's continued distortion of its wartime history. Take a look.
This 5th grade class is having a special day today.
일본군이 침략 전쟁 때 일본군과 일본군 정부에 의해서 전쟁터에 강제로 끌려가서 지속적으로 성폭력을 당한 여성을 말합니다.
With Japan's continuous distortion of history, the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family joined with the Ministry of Education to teach students the correct history.
This is a special demonstration class to help elementary, middle and high school students fully understand Japan's military sex slavery during World War II and how they can take part in helping the victims.
The class informs students about who the sexual slaves are, the enslavement they had to endure, and their current situation in fighting the Japanese government for compensation and a sincere apology. Through today's lesson and worksheet, students seem to have experienced something deep and emotional.
I was able to learn more about the Japanese wartime sexual slaves, and I am so sad and angry the women had to go through such pain.
I am glad to have had this lesson and would like to do what I can for the victims to get a proper apology and compensation.
The demonstration classes began in September around 18 different elementary, middle, and high schools around the country. This month, at least one grade level from each of the country's 17 education offices will carry on this demonstration class. The presentations used for teaching have also been uploaded to the eHistory website. Hopefully, through this opportunity, the plan on expanding such classes on Japan's wartime sexual slavery will proceed starting next year. 이지원, 아리랑 뉴스.
A new report shows Korea's corporate profit to gross national income ratio is the highest in the OECD, pointing to the need for a corporate tax hike. Our Kwon Jang-ho reports.
The corporate tax rate in Korea is currently at 24.2%. Not only is it lower than the OECD average of 25.3%, it ranks 20th out of the 34 member nations. But the Korean government has argued against raising the tax rate, pointing to the fact that it makes up 3.4% of Korea's GDP, which is one of the highest in the OECD. Citing industry data, lawmaker Park Won-suk of the Minority Justice Party pointed out that when corporate profit is measured against gross national income, big firms have been paying comparatively little in taxes over the previous 15 years. Back in 2000, the ratio between corporate profits to GNI was almost on par with the OECD average. While the ratio of Korea's corporate profits increased over 8 percentage points up through 2010, the OECD average stayed largely the same. Corporate profit made up over 25% of Korea's GNI on average over the last 5 years, the highest among OECD countries. Park pointed out that more contribution to the nation's GDP through tax is necessary.
Not only can corporates afford to pay more tax, they need to, so the country can run better. When companies don't pay their fair share, the government and public end up contributing an unfair amount.
Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
The Korean government is set to announce how it plans to evaluate and dismiss underperforming senior workers at public institutions. The push is a follow-up measures to ongoing wage peak negotiations. Shin Se-min has the details.
The Finance Ministry is set to release guidelines for evaluating workers at public institutions and laying off underperforming senior workers before the year ends. The move is part of the government's normalization plan that aims to make it easier to fire employees that are not pulling their weight. The idea is to dismiss executives at public institutions that fail to produce substantial results over the course of 2 years. Labor reform efforts have so far been focused on getting companies to adopt the so-called wage peak system that allows older employees to work until later in life, but on a lower salary. Seeing the wage peak system gain more momentum, the government is now turning to the idea of creating more accountability. The new guidelines come as part of the decision made by unions, companies, and the government to devise measures to assess workers at public bodies and the private sector as well. Already for government workers, stricter plans are in the works. Earlier this month, the Ministry of Personnel Management announced measures to reinforce performance-based evaluations for public servants. They state that workers given the lowest ranking, or those who don't receive assignments for set periods of time, will be dismissed, but that multiple following screenings will help ensure employees are not let go unfairly. But experts say it is difficult to have a standardized guideline.
Guidelines may not be enough in evaluating public servants or workers at public institutions, as their performance cannot be assessed in numbers and products.
He added that a more rational guideline catering to workers at public institutions as well as a fair way of evaluating workers are necessary. The system to lay off public servants was implemented in 2006, but not a single government employee has so far been dismissed for lax performance. Shin Sae-min, Arirang News.
Pacific trade negotiators have reached a historic agreement on the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP, that would remove trade barriers for 12 countries. According to Reuters on Monday, the ministers are set to release details of the deal later in the day, ending a week of marathon talks in Atlanta. The U.S.-led trade pact would cover 40% of the global economy and affect prices of items ranging from cheese to automobiles. Countries involved in the trade talks include Canada, Japan, and Australia. Asia's largest book festival is being held in Gyeonggi-do province, just on the outskirts of the capital. The Paju Buksori Festival is in full swing. Organizers hope the event will bring together people from all walks of life to help create a literary environment. Kim Min-ji takes us there.
Listening to hands-on experience about life on South Pole. This researcher from the Korea Polar Research Institute shares his works and describes the nature of the mystical lands, giving people a new insight.
I really enjoyed my time. It's great that we can take part in lectures by experts that we would never be able to approach in our daily life.
This is one of the main events that's part of the 2015 Paju Buksori Festival, with a new topic every day. The annual event, into its 5th year now, aims to foster a literary environment for people of all ages under the theme of a playground for reading people.
We aim to find Asia's value through books. The festival provides a platform for publicists, experts, and readers to come together to develop Asia's value as well as exchange ideas.
To mark the 70th anniversary of Korea's liberation from Japan's colonial rule, there's also an exhibition that offers a peek into the development of Korea's publication industry since. Display are works of famous authors, both local and foreign, which accompanied Korea's economic progress. People can take time to find out about that history, as well as share their opinions through conferences and open discussions. The opening ceremony included various musical performances and a welcome from the mayor of Paju, wishing for a successful event. Over 100 events, including a parade and an opportunity to make your own books, are part of the week-long festival, which will be held within Paju Book City. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News, Paju.
Now for international news headlines, we join Bruce Harrison at the News Center.
Today's focus: Russia expands its military role in Syria. Islamic State militants destroy another major monument in an ancient city in Syria, and 3 scientists win the Nobel Prize in Medicine for their work to wipe out parasitic diseases.
Bruce, Turkey and Russia are at odds over which direction the Syrian government should take in the fight against IS militants, and relations got a bit more tense over the weekend.
Well, Ji-hye, Russia's been heavily criticized for allegedly bombing targets other than Islamic State fighters in Syria, and now neighboring Turkey says it intercepted a Russian jet in its airspace. The Turkish government tore into Russia's foreign ministry. In response, Moscow apparently said it made a mistake but won't do it again. Now, the United States has a whole separate set of complaints concerning Russia's intervention, and we turn to our Oh Soo-young. She has details on that.
With Russia's defense ministry saying it intensified its airstrikes in Syria, targeting 10 Islamic State positions over the weekend, tensions are escalating between the US and Russia as the two continue their dispute over Russia's involvement in Syria. The strikes reportedly hit a terrorist training camp, including a suicide belt factory. It's not known how many terrorists were killed in the strikes, but Russia says they have considerably reduced the combat potential of the militants. However, Western nations are highly suspicious of Russia's intervention, saying the country is carrying out military action in Syria in support of President Bashar al-Assad. Meanwhile, the US reinstated its support for Ukrainian forces amid a ceasefire with pro-Russian separatists. According to a Russian media outlet, Ukraine's President Petro Poroshenko said Sunday that US President Barack Obama had promised to supply new defensive weapons. This follows an agreement made last week with President Obama pledging to give an additional $20 million for defense articles and services. This is said to entail artillery battery systems which will help deter pro-Russian militant attacks. Throughout the conflict, the US has provided the Ukrainian government with military equipment and training worth over $240 million. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
The Islamic State has blown up another historical monument in the ancient Roman city of Palmyra. Syria's antiquities chief said sources in the 2,000-year-old city confirmed the destruction of the Ark of Triumph. The Islamic extremist group captured the city from the Syrian government forces in May. The group considers ancient buildings in the area sacrilegious as they predate Islam. Blowing up the relics is also a way to draw attention to their organization, including reaching recruits to fight for Islamic State. The militants have destroyed many tombs and temples in Palmyra. They also beheaded the elderly guardian of the city's ruins after he refused to tell IS where he'd hidden relics from a museum. Palmyra is a World Heritage Site, and UNESCO considers the desecration of the buildings war crimes aimed at erasing Syria's diverse cultural history. Pioneers in parasite treatment have been awarded the Nobel Prize in Medicine or Physiology. Their work is improving the lives of people all over the world, including some of its poorest regions.
The Nobel Assembly at the Karolinska Institute has today awarded the 2015 Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine, with one half jointly to William C. Campbell and Satoshi Omura for their discoveries concerning a novel therapy against infections caused by roundworm parasites.
Campbell and Omura discovered a drug that has helped fight river blindness and shown effectiveness as well against other parasitic diseases. The other half of the prize was awarded to Yu Tu for discoveries concerning a novel therapy against malaria. In addition to the honor, the award comes with a cash prize. This year's winners will share around $1 million. And that's a glimpse of the world today. Have a great night.
Hello, I'm Hwang Ji-hye with your latest weather updates. We've been enjoying beautiful autumn weather, and tomorrow is shaping up to be another pleasant day, but be sure to dress warmly for your morning commute because conditions will be quite chilly tomorrow morning. And for those of you regions in blue, you'll wake up to lows below 10 degrees Celsius, but highs will bounce back to the mid-20s in most parts as the daily high here in Seoul and Daegu will hike up to 26, and Gwangju and Busan will get up to 27 and 25. And as for the other regions, Daejeon and Jeju Island will see a high of 26 and 24, while Dokdo rises to 20. Now, the big temperature gaps and dry air are causing many people to get sick these days, so take good care of your health by drinking plenty of water and staying warm. And with each passing day, we'll notice a drop in temperatures. Highs will hover in the mid to low 20s through the week, but rain on Saturday should bring down readings by a few more notches. So enjoy the warm fall weather while it's here. That's all for the weather. Good night.
that means we've come to the end of our newscast. Thank you for staying with us.
We will be back same time tomorrow. Goodbye for now.